Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. It is Season 2, Episode 3 of the Dropkicks and Attractions podcast. I am, of course, the Prince of Pop Culture, Big Box Mom's favorite host of the show, Xander Invictus. And, of course, I am joined by my close personal friend, Big Box. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great today. Are you doing okay, too?
I'm finally off of work. I had to do 7 out of 9 straight days.
Yuck.
So, your boy's a little tired. Let's put it this way, mommy daddy juice later on, but I'm drinking a C4 to stay awake right now. Yeah, got some days up, so... Alright, so we are doing the week of April 12th, 1993, which we'll get to in a little bit, is actually the first Monday Night Raw not in the Hammerstein Ballroom. Or actually in Manhattan Center, rather.
Yeah, we are going to be at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Yep, so we'll get to that a little bit later. So we are doing, of course, the... now pop culture stuff. Right now, what are you watching? Anything? You still watching other stuff? Any new movies you caught up? What are you consuming?
I have stalled on Tony Kawa briefly. I've got this week's episode ready to watch. Just need to get there. But I've gone back to an old favorite, My Dress Up Darling. That's an anime about cosplayers.
Okay, another slice of life type thing.
Yeah.
Okay, have we been watching any movies or expanding out of the world of anime lately?
Not really.
Not surprised. I was actually at my parents' house a couple weeks ago. I saw Gran Torino was on television. I haven't seen that in a while. That's absolutely fantastic movie, especially if you're a Clint Eastwood fan.
You told us about that last week.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, well, watch it again. It was good. It's a good movie. One thing I did not mention, and I finished it a couple weeks ago, it was a short season, was they did a reboot of Night Court. For those that don't know, Night Court was a show about a basically midnight courthouse. Like, it was a courtroom in New York City, but they were basically third shift court.
Neat.
It's absolutely funny, hilarious. And they did a reboot where it was the main character, his daughter is now the judge.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I watched it. It was about, I think it was like 10 or 12 episodes. It had its moments. What I did like about it was, they only had one character left from the original. They brought John Larroquette, who was easily the funniest part of that show.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't try to ham-fist any issues back and forth on whatever side, which, was kind of easy to do in some sort of, like, whether it's comedy or drama, any kind of courthouse thing, it's pretty easy to sway somewhat, but they actually kept it pretty... nothing real, no real issue type thing. It's basically, it was all played for comedy.
Gotcha, okay.
Like, and yes, they actually did have a true crime podcast episode.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, but basically it was just, the wacky people that work there, and then all the weird cases.
Just an on-the-job show, basically.
Basically, and like the original one's considered, a classic. A lot of people like it.
Yeah, that was where Brent Spiner got his start, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, like he did a couple of guest appearances as some of the defendants.
Mm-hmm.
Brent Spiner was on there, and you can go on and on with some of the other characters. Like, there's been a lot of people that did that show, and like it took a couple episodes to get into. I really liked it. Like, I thought the middle part of it was the strongest, and there were some actual laugh out loud moments because they once again didn't try to do anything, touch on anything special. It was just, hey, this is a show that's freaking goofy. We're going to keep it goofy. And it's actually the main character. She's played by Melissa Rauch, who people are going to know as Bernadette from The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, really?
Which is actually weird to actually listen to her real voice. Which took a little bit, but you get used to it. It's a great show. They did get renewed for season 2, so I am going to watch that. And with the cast that people know Night Court for, the original... honestly, you didn't get that original full cast until season 3.
I see.
So it's like, oh, okay, we'll see what's going on. I'm obviously going to give it, Do I like the original better? Absolutely. But it's really hard lately, because everything is a reboot, a requel, a remake, a reimagining, re-something.
Right.
This one, it was actually like, it didn't try, it's like, yeah, we're paying homage to it, but we're not trying to redo it. Like, the humor's different because obviously a lot of the humor you had back in the mid-'80s you couldn't do now.
Right, it was a different time.
Yeah, and they're not trying to. They're using modern humor, but it's not... they're not trying, like I said, they're not trying to ham-fist anything.
Right.
So it's harmless. So it's just a harmless sitcom. At least give it a shot. Like I said, the first season was only like 10 or 12 episodes.
Where can it be found?
Peacock. It was an NBC show, so you can find it on Peacock. The whole season, like I said, the whole season's up now.
Is the classic up there too, do you know?
No, it's not, and I'm honestly kind of miffed. It's not streaming anywhere, actually.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, Night Court, I'm going to watch this. And I was like, oh, sorry, you can't find it. No. But, yeah, so go watch it. Like I said, if you don't like it, it's only 10 episodes. And, a lot of times the first season of a lot of shows is not the best.
Yeah, they got to find their footing.
Yeah, like I said, the original Night Court, you didn't get the cast that everybody knows that you would consider the cast until season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, my all-time favorite comedy show, and you know this, is The Office, the American version.
Right.
The first season's not the best. Like, you had a couple great episodes in it. There was only 6 episodes in the first season itself.
Right, was that during the writer's strike in, I think, 2008?
I think I'd have to go back and look. And actually, the first episode of The Office is basically a shot-for-shot remake of the first episode of the UK Office.
Right.
So it wasn't even... Yeah, like, there were still a couple good episodes. Like, the Diversity Day episode's great. There's a basketball episode that's fantastic. But I would say, and a lot of people that do like The Office, and I've seen it at least 7 or 8 times all the way through. I quote it. Like, I know all the little nuances of the shows.
Mm-hmm.
I would say most people that are fans of The Office would say seasons 3, 4, and 5 is peak. That's the peak Office right there.
Gotcha.
By the way, Jim and Pam is not the best couple.
Who is then?
Michael and Holly, people that watch the show understand, and I will not be taking any questions or feedback about why.
Alrighty then.
Because it's the truth. Anyways, so, for the next segment, I actually do have a name for it. The Concession Stand.
I like that.
Thank you. Well, I got the idea. I used to watch Geek and Sundry way back in the day when it first started. And there was a movie show. Like, if anybody that follows Twitter or YouTube knows the guys from Heroes Reforged. They do a lot of, like, trailer reactions and discussions and reactions about TV shows. And, especially majority comic book rise, but a lot of comic book, Disney, that sort of thing. They had a show called The Concession Stand, which wasn't their show. It was Geek and Sundry's. You know how all that stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the show hasn't been around for years, and Geek and Sundry hasn't been as it was, if it even still is, for a long time. The Concession Stand even longer. I reached out to the guys just to play nice, ask permission to use it. They said it wasn't our show, but they said go ahead for it. So, thanks to the guys there.
Alrighty.
And I've actually met all 3 of them. They're absolutely fantastic guys anyway, so...
Cool.
Please go watch Heroes Reforged. They were gracious enough to do that for us, so check them out. So, the idea of the concession stand is Bach brings something to the table, I bring something to the table that we know the other one hasn't watched yet. Just to appease us, open our horizons. And let's get the bad news out of the way first. I didn't watch my show. I did not have time to. I worked clean today 7 out of the last 9 days, and I've been absolutely exhausted.
And I know it happens like that sometimes.
Yeah, so we're actually going to push mine back a week. So, Bach, if you want to go ahead and give a quick synopsis on what I was trying to watch, just so people can join in.
The show is an anime called Hyoka from Kyoto Animation. It's about a group of high schoolers reviving the classic literature club, and they solve little mysteries along the way.
Okay, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Crunchyroll?
Yes.
Okay. So I actually have 3.5 out of the next 4 days off, so I'm going to try to watch as much of that as I can. And you said it's not a lot of episodes, is it?
It's a 22-episode show, but if it's not really grabbing you, you can end at episode 5. That wraps up the first story arc.
Okay, well, I'll still watch it all the way through. I'm not going to... It's only fair.
All right.
So, obviously we know what I'm watching for next week. And we'll go ahead and, promote that again on the Twitter page.
Mm-hmm.
For you, sir, what did I have you watch?
You had me watch Cocaine Bear.
Which came out this year.
It is on Peacock.
Yep, and what did you think?
It is absolutely not the kind of movie I'd seek out on my own. And as you put it, if you go into this expecting 90 minutes of a coked-out bear mauling people, you'll get what you want. And that's exactly what it was. It wasn't really my thing, but there was enjoyment to be had.
Yeah, because once again, it's the synopsis and the title is in the title of the movie. What was your favorite part? If you had to pick one part that you liked the most, what would have been your favorite part?
Honestly, Ray Liotta's whole performance was pretty damn good.
I mean, to be fair, it was Ray Liotta in general.
Right.
And by the way, I'm talking about my favorite part. What did you think of the ambulance chase?
That was a thing. I don't know what the heck to say about it.
You can see why that was my favorite part.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so, okay, let's go on a scale of 1 to 5. What would you give that?
For what it was, I'd give it a 4.
Okay. Not your thing, but, you could see where I was coming from that. Okay, that's fair.
Exactly.
Okay. So, I am going to do another comedy. Well, actually, that really wasn't a comedy, but you can see where people would laugh at it.
Yeah.
Like, me and our mutual friend laughed our asses off in the theater.
Gotcha.
So, I'm going to do something different. Well, not something different. It's going to be another comedy. And you and I have been in some sort of hospitality industry between college and jobs and everything for many years in different facets of retail, hospitality, fast food, everything, right?
Yes.
All right, so I want to have you watch a movie that we can find many, many places, but specifically Hulu. Unless you want to rent it, you can rent it on Amazon, YouTube, whatever, but mainly Hulu because, if you have Hulu, you can watch this. It's from 2005, and we're both big Ryan Reynolds fans, yes.
Right.
I'm a Justin Long fan myself.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting. It's called Waiting, ... It's an R-rated comedy. If you can find the unrated, I think there is an unrated version. If you can find that one, watch it, but it's R-rated for a reason. And it's basically just a bunch of people that work at this restaurant, kind of like a Fridays or Bennigan's style restaurant. It's got Ryan Reynolds in it, John Francis Daly, who wrote like the Spider-Man movies and was in Bones and that sort of thing, is in this.
Oh yeah, I know him in Bones.
Yeah, he's in this. Justin Long is in this. Anna Faris is in this. Dane Cook is in this movie. Like, people are going to recognize a lot of this cast. And we'll put it this way, it's R-rated for a reason.
Okay.
It's a little raunchy, but it's nothing.
Not excessive.
No, I wouldn't stray you purposely over something.
Right.
It's a cult classic. I would consider it a cult level movie.
Okay.
But yeah, right now Hulu. I'm looking at it. You can, if you have Roku, Hulu, Apple TV, Vudu, Redbox, Amazon Prime. YouTube. Let me see if Amazon Prime is free. No, Amazon Prime. It's one of the premium ones. So, Roku, Hulu, Apple, Vudu, Redbox. If you want to rent it for Redbox, it's pretty accessible. It's on Comedy Central a lot. So that one's it's a fun movie. I got a small list of things I want you to try out.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll try Waiting, and then if you like that, we'll see how much you like the sequel. Direct to video with next to none of the same cast members. Let's put it this way. I'm going to give you a little spoiler. I really, really like Waiting. Still Waiting's a piece of shit.
Okay.
So, guess what you get to watch the week after?
Wonderful.
It's a piece of shit. I do not like it. And you know how I feel about movies in general.
Yeah.
They get a guy that I recognize him. He played the son in Reba. That's where I recognize him from. He was one of the characters on the Reba sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to be Ryan Reynolds.
He fails.
Horribly. But we'll talk more about that in later on. I'll pop the trailer up on for Waiting itself. I'll pop it up on the Twitter page this week. So, I'm going to try to watch this anime again. What was the name of it again, and where can you find it?
It's called Hyoka. It's on Crunchyroll.
Okay. And Waiting right now, Hulu, wherever else you want to find it, but primarily Hulu. I think Still Waiting might be on Tubi. That's where I found it. If not, you can rent it for a couple dollars on Amazon.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, we got the concession stand out of the way. Let's go ahead and get to the wrestling. So, we are, once again, as we mentioned before, the week of April 12th, 1993. Monday Night Raw is in New York, but not New York City. For the first time in Raw's history, we are not in the Manhattan Center. We are actually in Poughkeepsie in upstate New York.
Yeah, we are at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the cold open of Money Inc. bribing the Beverleys to tell them about the Steiners.
The Beverlys fought the Steiners. I was actually I enjoyed that match last week. The Beverly Brothers versus the Steiner Brothers. The Steiner Brothers came out on top. Because we're going to come into our first match before this. Vince welcomes Macho. And Rob Bartlett came back, and I'm not going to lie. I liked Rob Bartlett this week.
He had some stupid lines, but on the whole, he was improved here. To be fair, though, that's not hard.
No, but it's the fact that was like, I was like, Rob Bartlett. And by the end of this, I was like, he even cracked me up a couple times. Like, if we had this Rob Bartlett from the start, and not the next to last week he's going to be on the show, I would have been okay with him.
Agreed.
Yeah, but once again, this is next week's show is actually his last episode, and he's basically never mentioned ever again. He's like that episode of The Simpsons where Homer was Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie.
Yeah.
Poochie died on the way back to his home planet.
And never mentioned again.
Yeah, basically, Rob Bartlett after next week is never heard from again. But it's a shame because I actually enjoyed him this week.
Well, that gives me a little hope for his season finale next week.
Yeah, I think he's going to die on the way back to his home planet. So, our opening match involves this. It is Erwin R. Shyster with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. They are the current WWF Tag Team Champions. Going up against Scott Steiner with his brother Rick. From the Steiner Brothers, obviously.
There's mention that Rob is set to interview Luna Vachon later in the program.
Yeah. And fun fact, we all know that the Steiner Brothers, we know they're All-American wrestlers from the University of Michigan.
Right.
But fun fact, Mike Rotunda, IRS, was actually a very accomplished collegiate wrestler from Syracuse.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had won some tournaments, and he was very well accomplished as a grappler in his own right. And if you really want to go, of course, Xander would know shit like this. They were in a stable together in Jim Crockett Promotions, which was the precursor of WCW back in the late 80s. Kevin Sullivan, who we'll get into later on this year in WCW, started a stable called the Varsity Club, which is basically all these collegiate-style wrestlers and had wrestled before, college level. We had Rick Steiner from the University of Michigan, and then we actually also had Mike Rotunda from Syracuse, and they had also ended up recruiting at one point, Dan Spivey, who wrestled in the University of Georgia, who we'll see later on in WWF as Waylon Mercy. You had Dr. Death Steve Williams, a Hall of Famer, who was from the University of Oklahoma, who was a wrestler and a football player.
Oh, wow.
So basically, these were all guys that were college-level athletes who had wrestled.
Right.
And that was basically, they were known as the Varsity Club.
Cool.
So it's nice. So you're going to see, you can actually, we'll see this at the very beginning, that the Graps, which I'm a big fan of, Scott and Irwin know what they're doing. And it was nice to see that at the beginning.
Yeah, and that was a running theme of this week of wrestling for me. There was a lot of chain wrestling. I didn't see that much in either of our previous 2 episodes.
No, which, you know me, I'm a big fan of the chain wrestling.
Right.
And any of the technical stuff I'm a big fan of. And we actually got a nice enziguri by IRS, but Scott answers that with a power slam.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, at that point, DiBiase comes onto the apron, and that buys IRS time to powder out.
Yeah. And it was also nice to see that, speaking of all the Hall of Famers in this match, we get the 2023 Warrior recipient from the Hall of Fame ceremony this year. Referee Tim White is the referee.
Oh, really? Yeah, I heard he had gotten the Warrior Award. Like, he died of cancer, didn't he?
So here recently, but he was a very well-respected referee. He did a lot of backstage work. One of those, beloved, everybody loved him. Did a lot of work backstage to help out, but he was also, you're going to see him ref for almost at least the next 15 years or so.
Holy cow.
We're going to see a lot of Tim White.
Gotcha.
Which is a good thing. Well, we'll get to that's mid-2000s or something. It's called the Lunchtime Suicides.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. We'll get there.
Okay.
Anyways, I mentioned this in the notes, how Bartlett was very subdued.
Yeah, sometimes that's what you need. A more subdued Bartlett throughout would have been better than what we got.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if there was something he was trying to change something, or they basically told him, hey, you're out after this, so he was just like, whatever.
Right.
But I really like Rob Bartlett all night. He had a couple quips that were groaners, but it wasn't anything like, okay, it didn't work, it didn't work, I'm gonna move on.
Yeah, there was one in this match. He says, IRS has the belt, what do you need the suspenders for? I thought that was kind of silly, but looking back on it, I can see why it would work.
Yeah, like, and it worked. And I like they had the exchanges where they were trying to vertical suplex each other, and Scott just straight up bodied IRS over. Like, I don't think IRS helped him at all.
Yeah, I saw that. That only got him a 2 count.
Yeah, but I just like Rick and Scott were the kind of guys, if they decided they were going to throw you,
it was going to happen.
It was going to happen. Especially Rick. Scott gets sent to the outside, DiBiase hits a clothesline, and then proceeds to strip because Rick's going to come down, so DiBiase decides he's going to take his entire entrance outfit off, get down to the skivvies.
Yeah, they go face to face, and that's when we hit our first commercial.
Yep, and then IRS hits a nice backbreaker, and ta-da, guys! IRS goes off the top rope and lands up.
And that would be a flying nothing.
Flying nothing. Not the first one, or I'm sorry, not the last one we're going to see tonight either.
Nope.
So he gets Scott starts making his comeback, getting that second wind. And there's a spot I like where Scott grabbed him by the tie and kind of just leapt over the top rope and kind of guillotined him over the rope with his tie, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, and that's the same word I used. He guillotined. After that, we get a back body drop, Tiger Driver, and Ted breaks up a pin for the DQ.
Yep, and then all of a sudden you get all 4 men in there. And then the Steiners looking up, they're going to set up one of their finishers, which was the Doomsday Bulldog.
Oh, is that what that's called?
Yeah, Rick was going to go for a Bulldog. And you can kind of tell, because this is where the Beverly Brothers come out, and you can kind of tell if you watch this match again, you watch Rick on the top, he's sitting there kind of waiting. He's kind of waiting a little bit because the Beverly's, mush him over the rope. But you can kind of tell, if you watch him again, he's waiting for them to come.
Right.
Like I don't know if he was a moment too early or the Beverlys were a moment too late. Like, there's a moment in there, if you watch it again, you can see where he's waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, and this match took 9 minutes, 58 seconds.
Yeah, and then afterwards, also it was basically a 4-on-2 mauling, but the Beverlys look like they're going to clothesline Scott, but he ducks and they clothesline Ted. And then all the good guys escape. The bad guys argue at each other over everything.
Yeah, and then the Beverlys motion like they want the belts.
Yeah, and we will see a conclusion of this by the end of the episode. And fun fact, as I was looking this up, that I didn't realize just how dominant Money Inc. was at this time. For about an 18-month period, which was like the peak Money Inc., they were the champions for 14 out of those 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They were always defending them on TV and house shows and everything. You really don't see, every once in a great while you'll see it, but you really don't see title changes at house shows very often as much.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't even realize this, for a good 14 months out of 18, they were the tag champs.
Long reign.
Yeah, like I know they dropped them to Natural Disasters at one point, and then they traded, here in June, they'll trade them with the Steiners back and forth for a little bit before the Steiners finally usurped their throne. But yeah, they basically took on everybody.
Cool.
So we go to another commercial break. We come back with Tatanka, a favorite of mine, especially when I was that age, versus Von Crush, they say it both, which everybody knows is from ECW, WCW, that's Big Vito, who we still see in the Independents, who's actually in phenomenal shape. Basically looks like he does now, except he's a little bit more jacked now than he was then.
Oh, wow.
But he still looks exactly the same, and this is like 30 years ago. But yeah, Big Vito. Very nice guy on social media. I follow him on TikTok and Twitter. Very nice guy. Who will still do the Von Crush gimmick, like, for different shows. If people want it, he'll be like, hey, I'll show up as that.
Cool.
Basically, this is just your normal, typical squash match. However, a big wrinkle in this is we get Doink making out his way to the ring with a squirting umbrella.
Yeah, the focus is on him for like a minute while the match is still going on.
Yeah, so obviously it looks like we're building towards Tatanka versus Doink, which is, since this is still Matt Bourne Doink, I'm cool with this because Matt Bourne was very accomplished technically.
Gotcha.
We get the nice power slam and elbow drop from Tatanka, but Von Crush is able to get a nice kind of like spinning flying uppercut for just a moment of control, but Tatanka gets the end of the trail for the win.
Oh, is that what that's called? End of the trail. I thought it was just a Samoan drop.
It is, but he calls it the end of the trail.
Okay. That match took 4 minutes, 2 seconds.
Yeah, like it was just a typical squash match, but I think the big takeaway from this is it looks like we're setting up Doink versus Tatanka in the near future.
Right.
And then we still get the WrestleMania 9 report. 2 weeks after the show, they're still pushing WrestleMania 9 hard. I don't think they got the numbers that they wanted because they're pushing this thing hard.
Yeah, and they're talking about how there's going to be an encore performance on pay-per-view tonight.
Yeah, like 2 weeks later, I guess they didn't like what they had. But basically, Sean Mooney, the big thing out of this was Jack Tunney, the kayfabe president of WWF, says, no, Hulk Hogan's still the champion. That was a sanctioned match. And then this is actually my favorite part of the night. And I'm gonna say this now. My favorite part of the night involved Rob Bartlett.
I didn't like this spot.
I did. Because he was like, he's gonna ringside to interview Luna Vachon. And I was actually very shocked to hear a Sherry chant because as long as I knew her, Sherry was always a bad guy. You know, in WWF, before WWF, she was a bad guy. So it was kind of different to see Sherry chants. And I want to rewind a little bit about Luna. We established as part of the Vachon wrestling family.
Right.
However, you guys know me. I'm not the biggest reality TV guy. Like competition shows, reality TV, not really my thing. However, cooking competition shows, big fan of. Like Chopped, Iron Chef, whatever. But I like stuff like Top Chef. I love Hell's Kitchen.
I've watched it, but it's never really grabbed me the way you've talked about it grabbing you.
I watch it on Amazon, and I can't watch it on TV anymore because if I watch it on Amazon, all the cussing is unbleeped. You gotta hear Gordon Ramsay in his glory. The reason I bring up Hell's Kitchen is with Luna's first husband, she was married 3 times. Luna's first husband, one of her sons, was a competitor on Hell's Kitchen.
Oh, really?
And he's a fan favorite from the one season he was on. He was also on an All-Star season. So anybody that remembers Van, I want to say season 7? Season 4? Hold on, let me look that up. But yeah, who was from Texas, by the way. He had the Texas accent.
I gotcha. That's pretty cool.
I know he was in season 17, season 6. He was season 6 and then season 17. But yeah, he's a fan favorite who was actually he was known as a fish chef. He did a lot of stuff with chef.
Gotcha.
And I didn't realize this until after the fact. I'm like, oh, shit. So, yeah, one of her sons was actually a competitor on Hell's Kitchen. Once again, you know I gotta have my pop culture references. That's the name of the game.
Ain't your tangents.
And actually, Rob Bartlett had an actually decent Exorcist joke, and I was like, okay, this is gonna go all right, Rob. Because Luna had that deep, gravelly voice. He's like, make sure you don't throw up pea soup on me. And I'm like, that was actually pretty good, Rob.
Oh, The Exorcist. That's what that reference was.
Yeah, because that scene where she does the projectile vomiting was pea soup. That's what they used for the movie.
I've never seen The Exorcist.
Oh, I have. Aha! Note to self: add that to the list.
Yeah, the bit about Bartlett as we came back from commercial, where he was just reading WWF magazine looking for a picture of himself, and that bit didn't work.
Yeah, but and then while this is going on, here comes Sherry, who actually gets a pretty decent pop. And, they're arguing. They start to brawl. I absolutely love this whole segment as a whole.
On the whole, the segment was very good.
And then Rob Bartlett gets tossed around a little bit. Once again, this is the theme of this episode. Where was this Rob the previous 3 months?
Agreed. He is much improved in this episode.
We're going to repeat ourselves for the rest of this segment. And then we come back from a commercial. And I like the cool touch where Macho Man is ringside with Sherry. Because for those that don't know, when Macho Man was Macho King, when he won the King of the Ring years before it was a pay-per-view, Sherry Martel was actually his valet. So it was the Macho King and Queen Sherry. So I was like, oh, this is a cool little throwback from that. They're having a good time, and then Luna comes back out, and the ladies brawl. And they brawl while the entrances are happening for the next match. So as they finish up this segment, they go right into the next match, which is Papa Shango. And in the ring, who was in the ring for this whole second part of this, the post-commercial thing with the second brawl and the Macho Man? Scott Taylor, who everybody knows now as Scotty 2 Hotty, who, by the way, still wrestling, still in phenomenal shape. But yeah, basically this is what this is what we're going to expect.
This was just a beatdown.
It was, and I wasn't expecting anything less. But once again, the part that surprised me, Rob Bartlett came back all disheveled, he's got scratches and bruises, his shirt's torn. He's very, post-concussion syndrome. He's like, where am I, mommy? I actually smiled, like, unconsciously smiled at this. Like, I loved Rob Bartlett this whole episode. This was great.
Yeah, he faints in front of the commentary
desk. Yeah, and just lays there. And it was like, Macho, Vince was like, yeah, he's fine, just leave him there. Macho Man's like, oh, I'll help him. He's like, nah, he's good.
So yeah, he gets slapped awake, and then Papa Shango wins.
Yep, shoulder breaker.
2 minutes, 26 seconds.
Yeah, like, once again, I think this was more for Bartlett than the match.
Yeah.
But once again, no notes.
Yeah, I didn't have hardly anything written down about this either.
But I mean, as in, like, there was no notes for improvements. Like, I enjoyed this. This is what it was.
Gotcha.
And then we get to our quote-unquote main event, which is we have a debut of a new wrestler, and God, this match was horrible.
Yeah, this was pretty shitty.
We get Friar Ferguson, the wrestling monk, who looks like Friar Tuck from Robin Hood, even with the haircut, versus Chris Duffy. And for those that don't know, Friar Ferguson, and we'll know very, very soon, as Bastion Booger, yes, that's his name, was a journeyman wrestler who actually a lot of people might remember from WCW as Norman the Trucker, Norman the Lunatic, where he would come out in, like, Insane Asylum scrubs. Or then he would also be known as, as Norman the Lunatic, but he would be a good guy where he had a little hat with a propeller on it and a teddy bear. He was a lovable goof from an Insane Asylum.
Gotcha.
Like, he was just saddled with shit like that, so... But this is who this is, Mike Shaw. And I remember, this is what I remember, is that you got Chris Duffy out there, and you got Friar Ferguson. The last name Ferguson. This reminded me, because I grew up with OG Nickelodeon and OG Snick back in the day.
Right.
You get the name Ferguson. Mm-hmm. Chris Duffy looked like Ferguson from Clarissa Explains It All.
Oh, really?
Look it up. I swear to you. I was like, oh my God, it's Ferguson from Clarissa Explains It All.
Like, I remember that show, but it's been so long I don't remember what any of them looked like.
Go ahead and look up the picture while I talk about this, and you'll get it. So basically, and then the Friar Ferguson doesn't have a theme song. He comes out to, like, Gregorian chants, which also reminded me when they had those albums that, like, were very popular, where there was, like, just, like, chants, and it was called Chant, and it was, like, monks chanting, and it was huge. I don't remember when it was. It was, sometime early mid-90s, but I don't remember. I don't know if you remember this, but they were huge. I think there was 2 albums, at least 2. Yeah, it was great. But basically, Vince has confirmed we are getting Money Inc. versus the Beverly Brothers next week.
And credit where it's due, this is where Bartlett made the joke that I like about, is he going to be around a lot? He'll be the frequent friar.
Yeah, I love, you and I love a good pun and wordplay.
Yeah.
I was like, God damn it, Bartlett, you're fucking charming. What happened? So, once again, nothing happened. Running splash, body avalanche. Duffy goes for a sunset flip. Ferguson lifts up his robe, sits on him, he wins.
Yeah, that took 4 minutes and 23 seconds, and it was just kind of nothing interesting happened.
It was awful. You don't have to be as nice all the time. It was awful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, we go over this. Vince is going over the show for next week. We are getting Bret Hart back with an interview. First time seeing him since WrestleMania. We are getting Virgil versus Razor Ramon. And then we actually get backstage comments from Money Inc. about the challenge. They accept, and just as they finish accepting, the Beverly Brothers come out backstage, and they have a brawl to end the show.
I think that was a good way to end, honestly.
Yeah, and it's also going to be weird to have 2 heel teams fight each other.
Yeah, you don't do that a lot, especially not in modern times.
Not really. So overall, this show wasn't bad. IRS Scott Steiner match was my favorite.
Agreed. I'm going to grade the show as a whole B+.
Somewhere around there. Maybe a B to B-. Because the Fire Ferguson match was not good. But honestly, you know what saved this from being a meh episode? And I'm harping on it.
How much improved Bartlett was.
Yeah, Rob Bartlett, I think, was the MVP of the whole episode.
And, we're going to keep saying it. If we'd had this Bartlett the whole time, we wouldn't hate him.
Yeah, even though his last week is next week. Because, they at this time, they would tape 2 episodes back-to-back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And this would happen up until the late 90s.
Gotcha.
Raw live every week was not a thing until 98, 99?
The Monday Night War era.
Even towards the end of it, 98, 99. Yeah, a lot of big moments were on pre-recorded Raws. Mick Foley winning the title for the first time as Mankind.
The night the channels changed, right?
Yeah, that was a recorded episode.
Yeah, WCW spoiled that to try to ruin the thunder.
Yeah, and they instantly lost something like 500,000 or 600,000 viewers.
Right.
Which we'll get to that once we get there. But yeah, like, so you're talking, that was 98, I think. So you're talking, yeah, like 98, 99 is when they were live weekly.
Gotcha.
There would be times where they would have Heat live, Sunday Night Heat live, and then record Raw right after Heat.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Oh, I used to watch Heat weekly. So, okay. So obviously, like I said, I think we're both in agreement of our favorite parts of the show.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go ahead and go to the next show, WCW Saturday Night for April 17th, 1993. And we're going to go, show opens. Basically, we're going to review the remarks between Arn Anderson and Barry Windham from last week's show, ending with the brawl.
And as we go live, we're immediately starting Ron Simmons and Van Hammer versus Tex Schlesinger and Shanghai Pierce.
And this is what is kind of funny, and I looked this up to make sure my dates were right. Jesse and Tony were in the right. This is an odd pairing between Van Hammer and Ron Simmons. Doesn't seem like it would fit. And they were talking about, oh, well, if these guys were on the road, what music they would listen to. And Jesse's like, oh, Van Hammer listened to, like, heavy metal. And Tony's like, yeah, well, Ron Simmons kind of has, like, a rap theme. And I'm thinking, you know what? And Jesse made the mistake where he was like, oh, Aerosmith invented the whole rock rack thing with Walk This Way, which was like, that was not even the original release of Walk This Way, the song they did with Run DMC.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's a version of Walk This Way without the rapping. So this is actually a re-release of it that added Run DMC, which is way better than the Walk This Way without Run DMC.
Neat.
But the first thing I thought of when they're talking about between heavy metal and rap, I really like this song, is Bring the Noise, which is actually a Walk This Way same thing, where it was like a same song that they re-released with different, musicians. Public Enemy, which is where we get Flavor Flav. Good old Flavor Flav and Chuck D, and I think his name was Terminator X? Like, I'm not deep into Public Enemy. I think his name was Terminator X.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody in the chats want to help me out here, I think that's what it was. But basically, Public Enemy, they were very, like, a social... They were a rap group, but they were very, like, social issues type.
Socially conscious.
Yeah, very socially conscious. And I think Chuck D is still to this day.
Gotcha.
Anthrax, the heavy metal band, they did a thing of Bring the Noise, and it was a combination of basically heavy metal and rap. It was Public Enemy and Anthrax.
Cool.
And I'll throw the song. I'll see if I remember. I'll throw the song up here this week. But it's a great song. Like a lot of people have heard it. But that's the first thing I thought of was like, well, they can listen to Bring the Noise on repeat the entire road trip. Okay. Anyways, tangent.
Yep.
But yeah, we get early control from Van Hammer. Basically, this match was a whole lot of nothing, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, the most interesting thing about it was commentaries comparing their body structures. Tex is a big guy, but Hammer has more definition to him, even though he's about as big.
Yeah, they're about the same size, but yeah, Van Hammer was always cut. And, Schlesinger was the down-home country boy build.
Right.
The corn-fed. But basically, like I said, a lot of nothing in this. Ron Simmons gets power slam. He takes in Van Hammer, who gets low-bridged as the bad guys take over. He does get a blind tag, but the ref doesn't see it. But while all this is going on, the bad guys hit Van Hammer with their bull rope for the DQ. So the good guys do win by DQ.
Yeah, there were some okay chain sequences in this one, but on the whole, it was just 9 minutes and 6 seconds of eh.
Yeah, meh. Now, not meh is a guy who I've actually become a bigger fan of as we watch the show. Johnny B. Bad, who we know is Mark Merrow and everything now, but I'm really appreciating Johnny B. Bad now more as I get older.
Yeah, he's up against Todd Zane here.
Yeah, Todd Zane, who... Poor Zane, why is he making the mistake of trying to trade punches with Johnny B. Bad? Because, yeah, we established way back in the day that, the early days of the podcast, that Mark Merrow, the Johnny B. Bad in real life, is an accomplished amateur boxer who is a multiple-time Golden Gloves champion.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we had mentioned this in the early days of the podcast, way back in the day. Yeah, I'm not going to trade blows with a guy that has Golden Gloves credentials.
Right.
Actually, this match was a lot shorter. I actually liked it better. But, we had the stiff elbow and a power slam from Bad. Zane tries to get a couple things in. Atomic drop, he spins, turns around right into the left hook for the win.
2 minutes, 54 seconds. It was better.
Yeah, it was much better. I like this a lot better.
Yeah, it got in, did its thing, got out.
Yeah. And then we get another debut this week of Scott Flash Norton. Massive, just straight solid wall of a man.
Yeah, 345 pounds if I heard right.
something like that. It was all solid. This is his first run. He's in a very short run. He would come back later. Most people know him from his WCW run when he was in the NWO. But he was also very well... The most famous part of his career was he was in Japan. He was always one of those big... The gaijin. The big American wrestlers. That was his thing.
Right.
Who was also, if you see the size of his arms, it'll make sense. He was a former professional arm wrestler.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so you can tell with those arms that man can arm wrestle. By the way, still looks like that to this day. So this man has not skipped a gym day till now. And another fun fact we're going to talk about Schwarzenegger later. He was actually in an Arnold Schwarzenegger, not Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. Scott Norton was in the greatest arm wrestling movie of all time.
And that is?
Over the Top. Which, of course, I think is the only arm wrestling movie of all time.
I see.
But, it's a great movie. Sylvester Stallone is a truck driver who enters an arm wrestling contest to win the love of his son. And Over the Top is the special movie. But yeah, Scott Norton's actually in it as one of the arm wrestlers.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, this is just poor Scott McKeever.
Yeah, he just gets flattened.
Yeah, this is Scott on Scott violence. Just raw power. Scott Norton just gives him the Polish hammer, the big double blow. Puts his hand on his McKeever's face for the win.
69 seconds.
Nice. And Tony's ringside with Scott Norton in the interview. He's like, look, he's yelling the whole time. He's as loud as he is powerful. He's like, look, respect is earned, not given, and I'm going to take it from everybody. And then he just walks backstage.
Right.
And then we go into our next match. The Enforcer, Arn Anderson, versus good old Chick Donovan, who apparently is in his 70s and still wrestles.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize he was that old now.
Yeah, I didn't know who Chick Donovan was until recently, but I was like, yeah, apparently he's in his 70s now, and like, I guess up until about a month or so ago was still wrestling.
Ric Flair is about in that age bracket too, right?
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I think Chick Donovan's in better shape now. Anyways, so we get a handshake, and I'm like, oh, that's nice.
And then we get some really good chain wrestling here.
Oh, yeah, you finally got to see what Arn Anderson can do. Oh, I love this match. Back and forth, solid basics. This was just basic. Like I said, when you're in wrestling school, they beat the basics into you, and this is why. And I like how Art Donovan, that's later on. Chick Donovan wraps Arn's leg around the ring post, the one he's got damaged. So Arn's like, all right, fuck around and find out. He does that to Chick Donovan's arm. I was like, okay, boom. We go back and forth. Arn Anderson lands the most beautiful spine buster you ever see. The master of the spine buster, the spine on the pine, gets the 3 count.
That was 4 minutes and 27 seconds of solid.
Mm-hmm. Good old solid. It was great. I liked it. And then we get Arn Anderson and Ric Flair ringside for an interview with Tony.
And they call out Barry Windham.
Uh-huh. And this promo was so good. And because it was always like Arn Anderson was always like the second or third in command. Like Ric Flair was always the world champion. Arn was the TV champion usually. And so he's like, all due respect, it's my time. And I just like, if you watch Ric Flair, he's grinning ear to ear while Arn's doing this like he's a proud papa. And that made the promo better. And Ric Flair didn't even have to say a word.
Yeah, the promo was very good.
Yeah, and if you watch it again, watch Ric Flair in the back, just watching him like a proud papa. And I was like, oh, that made it so good. So we go into our next match. Speaking of the best spinebuster of all time, we now have the best pile driver of all time. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, the WCW television champion, going up against Gunner, who got a little offense in. He had a nice crossbody, some cool offense. And this is where Jesse lost me. Where he's like, talking about how Mr. Wonderful had gone through a lot of people to win the TV title tournament.
Right.
He's like, yeah, it was like the Final Four, but with 2 people.
Yeah, that didn't make a whole lot of sense.
So the finals and not the semifinals.
Right.
Rare miscue by Jesse, but you do you.
It's not all going to be gold. Everybody missteps sometimes.
Oh yeah, like Jesse was great as a color commentator, but then we get the backside spot, which every once in a while you'll still see. I love this spot where they're perpendicular to each other. Excuse me, I always get those two confused. Horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always get, for some reason, I always want to say one for the other. They're horizontal, but they're facing opposite directions.
Yeah, they ice climbered themselves from the mat back up to a vertical base.
Into a backslide. That's one of my favorite spots.
Yeah, that spot was very good. I really liked it.
Yeah, like whenever I see that, when I ever see that position, I was like, I know it's coming. I love it. And like I said, backslide simple, but just to be able to have that core strength to where you can bridge up like that, hold the other guy. The other guy's got to have the core strength to be able to do it too. So you know you both got good core strength to be able to lift the guy up, bridge like that, spin him around, and then do the backslide. I love that spot.
Yeah, it was great.
And then Gunner goes off the top with a
Flying nothing.
flying nothing, knee lift, best pile driver you will ever see in wrestling ever, pinfall.
4 minutes, 37 seconds, and that flying nothing was closer to a splash attempt.
It was, but you knew that is Gunner going to get a splash off Paul Orndorff?
Probably not.
And you also saw that it was less telegraphed, but it was still easily telegraphed, if that makes sense.
Not as telegraphed, but you could still tell.
Yeah, what you know how you are now. Once you see it once, you can see it coming from a mile away.
Yes.
And then we get our next match. Like they're just boom boom with the match. Like I said, we had like 10 matches this week on Saturday night.
Don't forget the Slamboree 93 promo.
We have not got. They're announcing it, but we don't have the Slamboree moment yet.
Oh, okay.
They're just promoting the pay-per-view. We don't have Dusty coming out just yet.
Okay.
We get one of my guys on my Mount Rushmore, Steve Regal, before he's known as William Regal, but this, once again, we've established one quarter of my Mount Rushmore.
And he's in action versus Bobby Baker.
And I honestly couldn't take a lot of notes in this because I was just watching Regal do what he did.
Yeah, again, there was a lot of great chain wrestling here.
He was doing the British style, the world of sport style that, he was doing what he was trained to do.
Right.
God damn, was he good. He was so good. Everything was crisp, everything, connected, everything looked good. And I honestly put not many notes, too busy watching. I have it in my notes as that.
It ends with Steve hitting a butterfly suplex to win, and that was a very dense 2 minutes, 56 seconds.
Yeah, and it was just, as much as that was all Regal, but it was just like, it's like, to me, it's like watching a chef cook, like a world famous chef. Like, I'm going back because we talked about it earlier in the show, like a Gordon Ramsay, just sitting there watching a guy like that just cook.
Like, the way he does it, like his mannerisms.
Yeah, and they're just the way everything Regal did was so crisp, it was so clean.
It fit together like a puzzle.
Yeah! He moved into that, into that, into that, into that, and it was gorgeous. So we get Tony, who's by the entranceway with U.S. champ Dustin Rhodes, who was just recently returned from a small shoulder injury. We haven't seen him in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still saying, hey, Orndorff and Rude want a shot. Hey, sign the contracts. If you want a shot, come sign them. He's like, he's a fighting champion. He'll take on anybody.
Yeah, he also calls in Steve Regal to cut a promo, and Steve calls out Vader on behalf of Davey Boy Smith.
Yeah, Davey Boy Smith's out doing a tour of England and the whole United Kingdom right now. And basically he's like, hey, British Bulldog sends his best to all the fans, but hey, Vader, he's still coming for you, and he still wants to throw down with you, so be careful. Once again, no notes here. Once again, you probably known him more as Goldust and stuff he does now, but Dustin Rhodes has always been good.
I didn't see a whole lot of the Goldust era, except when he was teaming with Cody as Stardust in the mid-2010s, I believe it was.
Yeah, but I mean, when the fact that he's going, you got the Orndorffs and the Rudes and everything he's going up against, Dustin Rhodes was always good.
Right.
So we get to the tag match with the tag champions, the Hollywood Blondes. They're finally the Hollywood Blondes. And it sucks because this tag team will not be around by the end of the year. And I'm pissed.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, because this team was so good. And it's finally seen as Blondes. And, they're known as Stunning Steve and Flying Brian, no last names anymore. From Hollywood, California. And as good as Stone Cold was, I love watching Stone Cold. I will watch Stone Cold matches any day of the week. Him as Stunning Steve was so much better.
Really?
Oh my god. Get a good long Stunning Steve match, like against Dustin Rhodes or against Ricky Steamboat. Or I want to say 94, he had a match in Japan with Great Muta. By the way, another 2022 Hall of Fame recipient. And someone I have a big amount of respect for, Great Muta.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about before. But yeah, he had a match in Great Muta. Oh my god. I love Stone Cold. Him as Stone Cold, he's considered one of the greatest for a reason. Watch some good Stunning Steve matches, and you're going to be like, oh my god. If I want a fantasy book, sometimes fantasy book can get weird.
Right.
But if I want a fantasy book, a match that I think would be amazing, prime Stunning Steve Austin, work with me on this, Prime, Stunning Steve Austin. Because you see how he moves, how he sells, and how he does his moves, right?
Yeah.
Prime, Stunning Steve, Dolph Ziggler.
Ooh.
How good would that match be?
That would be great.
Give him like 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. 15 minutes. Because Stunning Steve was doing a lot of this. You could see where Stunning Steve and Dolph Ziggler would just tear the house down.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's who Stunning Steve reminds me of. That's who Dolph Ziggler reminds me of, a modern day Stunning Steve Austin. And you can see it now, can't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and then once again, we get Jesse doing another Demolition Man reference. By the way, once again, absolutely love Demolition Man. Jesse wasn't in it very long.
Yeah, he was just a cameo, wasn't he?
He played one of Wesley Snipes' guys that he unfrosted at the climax. And I think Sandra Bullock actually kills Jesse Ventura in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Once again, Demolition Man. You don't even have to watch that for like the concession stand. Just watch it. It's a fun mid-90s action flick.
Gotcha.
It's fun, and you'll learn what the three seashells means. Rob Schneider's in it, and it's just enough Rob Schneider. There's a scene where, because they're like, the police officers don't deal with stuff because there's no crime anymore, and he sees Simon Phoenix killing somebody. He goes, "We're police officers. We're not qualified to handle this." It's a fun movie. It's an enjoyable action flick. Like, I love a good 90s action flick. This is up there. And once again, we've established my girl Sandy B's in it, who I'm sure listens to the show every week.
It's a popcorn movie.
Oh, 100%. And it's so good. Anyways, so, once again, nothing against the Italian Stallion and Chris Sullivan, but this was all Hollywood Blondes. Once again, they're the world tag champs.
Yeah.
And then Jesse makes another mistake where he talks about the Warner Brothers. Everybody knows those were not the Warner Brothers. Everybody knows Wacko and Yakko are the Warner Brothers.
Was Animaniacs out by that point?
Oh yeah, this is 93.
I couldn't remember.
Let me double check. But yeah, everybody knows Wacko and Yakko. And of course their sister Dot. 93? Actually September, so we're still a few months away, but basically everybody knows that the real Warner Brothers were Wacko and Yakko.
Yeah, Animaniacs was amazing.
I love it. I haven't watched the new ones they did on Hulu, but I've heard good things.
Mm-hmm.
Animaniacs, Tiny Toons. I liked Freakazoid as a kid, too.
Freakazoid was amazing.
Yeah, Tiny Toons was... that's a surefire Hall of Famer if they ever do a Cartoon Hall of Fame.
Oh, hell yes.
I love me some Tiny Toons. But anyways, as much as we're talking about this, honestly, it was a match to get over the Hollywood Blondes. There was not a lot of stuff going on. Classic tag team psychology where they're cutting off the ring, distracting the refs so the man that's not legal can get some shots in. They're doing a lot of spots with their sweat towels choking the other guy.
And I saw a questionable flying nothing.
From where? From who?
I believe it was from the Stallion, and Brian got a fist in the gut.
I have to read back on that one. I'll have to go back and check that again.
Yeah, it might have been closer to a flying axe handle, but it was kind of borderline.
Oh yeah, like a flying axe handle, the flying axe handle with the shot in the gut.
Yeah. Yeah, that was what I saw.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Because you can make a flying axe handle, because doing a flying axe handle is a lot more cleaner than just jumping towards the face.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? Like, we'll go 2.5 for this episode then. We'll call it a half.
Yeah, that sounds good.
A flying... There we go. That's the half. But man, this is the guys finished with an interesting tag finisher where Steve had the guy up. Jesse called it the Canadian rack, the Canadian backbreaker, which he considers familiar because that was Jesse's move when he was a wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brian dropkicked him, and then dropkicked him off Steve's shoulders for the win. I liked the move. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I liked it too. Good ending to a 6-minute match.
Yeah, like once again, no notes. This was done, and it wasn't a bad match. It was just done strictly to get the tag champions over.
It wasn't really meant to be. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of there.
Yeah. Speaking of there, and I know we try to be nice, but this is the tag team I'm not a fan of. The Cole Twins versus Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker and Bob Cook. And I noticed this. They kind of cut away from it in the beginning when they're announcing all the wrestlers. They're all doing their things. And Buddy's taking his shirt off. He's a member of the State Patrol. And they cut away and do a fade out right away. You can actually see Nick Patrick kind of helping Buddy take his shirt off. Like his arms are caught a little bit. They cut away from it real quick. But if you watch just as they're doing the fade into the next shot, you can see it.
I didn't pick up on that. Was his condition that bad at that time?
No, it was just he just having trouble with his shirt.
Oh, it was just a gaff.
You ever take a dress shirt off and get your arms caught?
Oh, yeah. Now I know what you mean.
There you go. I have a moment here where it says Jesse ain't wrong, and I have no idea what I'm talking about here. I took these notes the day before we recorded this, and I'm like...
Yeah, Tony and Jesse are talking...
Oh! I remember now.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. I just remember,
Yeah, I have that all the time.
Yeah. We were talking about the Cole twins, how they look alike. Jesse's like, why, get them different color shorts. Can we do something so we can make this a little bit more fair so we can figure out which one's which? And I'm like, God, he's not wrong.
Right. Yeah, I remember them talking about that.
Yeah. And then Tony had a good quip, honestly, where he's like, I'm a mayor. You know what I can do? And he's like, manipulate people? And I was like, okay, Tony. Boom. One for Tony. He's like, no. And I was like, God damn. The quips were on point this week for both shows.
Absolutely.
And then we get the whole Scorpio and Bagwell at the entrance. They don't interfere in this match at all. Cold Twins really aren't in any threat. This is just kind of like it's not really a partnership per se, but it's kind of like a mutual respect thing with the good guys, the Cold Twins, and then Scorpio and Bagwell. A weird double down where it looked like, I don't know if it was supposed to be a move that didn't connect or something happened. The double down at the end was weird.
Yeah, there was also the bit talking about quips. There was a bit where Jesse Ventura completely failed to do the Who's on First sketch, and that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, he tried to do it. He tried to do it every week, though, with the Every time the Cold Twins are on, he tried to do it. And I know we mentioned this way back in the ether. Jesse was talking about the Who's on First thing. So yeah, I remember there was some sort of comedy special on TV back in the 90s. I was a teenager somewhere, and I saw this. And like, if anybody's ever seen Who's on First, please look it up. It's classic comedy. It's absolutely fantastic.
Epitome of wordplay.
Yeah, like Abbott and Costello were a good duo for a reason. Like, I kind of have a feeling that I kind of model how you and I work off each other's Abbott and Costello.
I gotcha.
I'm very Abbott and you're very Costello, and you know what I'm talking about.
Kinda. I don't really know much about what their dynamic was.
Costello was the straight man.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Now I see it.
Like, very Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello. You always gotta have the straight man and then the smart mouth, and I'm the smart mouth.
Absolutely.
Not saying we're anywhere close to Abbott and Costello or even Laurel and Hardy. I'm cocky. I'm not that cocky.
We share the dynamic, not necessarily the talent.
Yeah. Yeah, I still to this day will enjoy watching Laurel and Hardy.
Wordplay never gets old.
No. We do, but the words don't.
Right.
But no, like, I remember watching the skit, and I actually couldn't do the skit, like some people can do the skit from memory. I could give you the lineup. I used to be able to give you the entire lineup, but I just couldn't do the skit.
Right.
So I had half of it down. Anyways, oh god, Jesus Christ. Tangent. Merch coming soon. We talked about this, merch coming soon.
The tilder of the match is we end with total chaos and Bob gets pinned by a jackknife. 7 minutes, 1 second.
Yeah, by the way, yes, there will be Tangent merch we're going to try by the end of the year. It was
It was okay.
It was alright. Like I said, the Cold Twins, I haven't been sold on them. Like some of the other teams I've been sold on, like, they're there. And then they come in, Bagwell and Scorpio congratulate him, and then they dance for a commercial. And then we get the Slamboree moment with Dusty, once again. Anytime Dusty Rhodes is on television and he's just waxing poetic, mwah.
Yeah, this was great.
It's just the way Dusty can just talk and just, you're in rapture. Like, Dusty could have been a master hypnotist the way he would just... Once again, the one thing I do want to put on our Twitter page, and one of us can do this, the Hard Times promo. One of the all-time greatest promos you will ever hear from Dusty. Like, you can understand why Cody loves this promo so much, not just because it's his dad. It's got to be at least top 5, if not top 3 promos of all time for me. And this was before me, I think, even, or before I started watching. I don't remember. Anyways, so he's announcing that we're gonna get Don Baracco's gonna be at Slamboree. We're gonna get Johnny Valentine at Slamboree, and obviously Harley Race is gonna be there. And then we're actually going to get the inventor of the Thez press, former world champion himself, Lou Thez, is going to be there, which is a big deal. And that's coming up here about a month or so. And like I said, we will have that episode in full once we get there as its own episode. But yeah, we're going to have a lot. And some of the we'll get into it once they said next week they're going to start doing the control center. Some of these legends actually will throw on the boots. There's going to be a couple legends matches.
Oh, cool.
So once again, like I said, anytime Dusty's on TV and he's doing his thing, you're enraptured. He didn't yell, he didn't scream. He was just smooth like velvet butter. God, I like that.
I like that
I
too.
remember that. Smooth like velvet butter. Okay, speaking of underrated, and not that Dusty was underrated at all, he wasn't. You know, speaking of guys I think are underrated, not that Dusty ever was, we get Barry Windham versus Tommy Angel. And even, I didn't recognize that as a kid because obviously you don't get into the minutia, as you know, unless you get into the history of it like we do. Barry Windham, I think, is underrated.
Coming at this from my perspective, I think he's pretty darn good.
Oh, he's fantastic. And just like I said, look at his stuff. Like, the whole storyline with him is he used to be a member of the Four Horsemen. They're trying to get the Horsemen together. He wants nothing to do with it. Look up some of his Horseman stuff.
Gotcha.
Or when him and Dustin Rhodes were a tag team. So good. But basically, once again, this was just a quick match to get Windham over. Angel had a small comeback, but not for nothing as Barry Windham hit the implant DDT for the win.
Yep, just 4 minutes and 51 seconds to make Windham look good.
And he did. Windham was crisp. Windham was good. He was a second generation. Even at 93, he was already a second generation wrestler.
Right.
And he's part of the Windham Rotundo, the Blackjacks, and Barry Windham, and Mike Rotunda, and Bray Wyatt, and Bo Dallas, and all those guys. So there's some wrestlers in there.
Yeah.
And then Jesse's ringside because Windham wanted Jesse, not Tony, for an interview. He's like, hey, Jesse's like, one of the things I wanted to do as an announcer, I wanted to call a horseman match. He mentioned Barry Windham's history as a horseman. And Windham always said that Arn was never worthy as a horseman. He was always fourth string, fifth string, whatever. And he's like, basically, if he wasn't number one, he'd be number two. What about Ric Flair? Windham just walks off.
Yeah, he nopes out of that.
Nope. And I like this because we're building. Once again, we're building towards Arn versus Barry for the title.
Right.
And then we get to the oh shit match of the night.
Yeah.
And on paper, you already know this is good. And this is not even their best match. We'll get to that Halloween Havoc this year. Cactus Jack versus Big Van Vader.
Yeah, they're about the same height. Maybe Vader's a bit taller.
Oh, Vader was way much taller.
Maybe it must have just been the perspective then.
I'm going to put up the height because Vader was huge.
But yeah, like Vader's got 150 pounds on CJ. Yikes.
Big Van Vader was 6'5".
Yeah, and then Mick Foley was 6'2".
Yeah, so 6'5", 450 pounds. This was a large man.
So yeah, the difference wasn't as much as I thought it was.
No. But still, massive. He dwarfed Mick Foley. And I like how they said, oh yeah, he's, from the Rockies, but not the baseball team. And Jesse had mentioned, hey, he could be a baseball team, and you know what I thought of?
What did you think of?
That classic Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's playing baseball, and he had that massive dude. Remember the baseball game where it was the one guy playing the baseball team and there was a huge dude?
I don't, actually.
Oh my god, it's a classic Bugs Bunny cartoon where Bugs Bunny ended up playing the entire baseball team.
Like, it sounds familiar, but I can't remember it.
Oh, look it up, it's a classic. Anyways, that's the first thing I thought of. And I was surprised that Cactus Jack just went into him and staggered Vader. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, Cactus Jack just went right for it. No hesitation.
We got wobbly kneed Vader quick. And even Jesse and Tony were like, oh my god. Because Vader did not do that. And then Vader gave it right back as well as he took it. And you could tell that Vader was a stiff wrestler.
Yeah.
I know for a fact some of those connected.
Yeah, one of them I heard. Like, one of those punches, like, I heard it connect.
I heard a few of them. Like, Vader was... People loved Vader. Like, backstage, people loved Vader. You can see when I was a 10-year-old or younger how Vader scared the shit out of me.
Absolutely.
Want to get, to this day, my all-time favorite big man wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, so he, like, one of those, if he wanted to hurt you and wanted to connect...
He would.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and then I was even more surprised that he ran in and Jack just picked him up and body slammed him. I was like, oh shit!
Yeah, that was like a holy shit moment.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Vader was the kind of guy he was, like, if he didn't want you to pick him up...
You wouldn't.
No. You gonna try to pick up 450 pounds of dead weight?
No.
No. So that just showed you, like, Vader could play ball.
Yeah.
But, and then he dropped him with a top rope clothesline on top of that. And what also impressed me was the way, in 1993, the bumps that Harley Race was taking.
Yeah, he got wiped out after Vader got clotheslined into the security railing on the outside.
Yeah, but the whole story about this match is that the obvious size and strength difference.
Right, the mismatch.
Yeah, no matter what Vader was throwing at Jack, every time he would hit him as hard as he could with different moves, Jack kept coming.
Right.
And here's the thing. I have a very high tolerance for pain. Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, whatever you call him, has a level that I am mystified to this day. The stuff that he was able to do and still walk.
Yeah.
And we'll get to King of the Ring 98. That's the Hell in the Cell.
Gotcha.
Where he gets thrown off the top of the Hell in the Cell. By the way, that moment was the beginning of the match.
What?
Yeah, that was like the first couple minutes. He did the rest of that match after that.
Oh my god.
There was no crash pad under that table either.
Yikes.
Yeah, that was... He did the whole match and then still ended up getting chokeslammed off the top through the top of the cell.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, I had the chance to go see one of his spoken word live shows. By the way, if you haven't get a chance, if you guys ever get a chance to do that, please go.
Yeah, I had wanted to go with you guys, I just couldn't afford it.
No, that was fine. I went at the last minute. I got my ticket the week before the show. It was a last minute thing for me as well.
Right.
By the way, for the fact that we got VIP seating, a meet and greet after the show, a picture, and an autograph, it was $50.
And I still have the Mr. Sacco you got me as a souvenir.
Yeah, that's not a bad price, though.
Not at all.
And just to hear him just tell the stories, and he told the story about this. We got to listen to tell about the whole process he went through and getting him to do his spot-on Terry Funk impression, because Terry Funk was in the ring, too. Oh, my God. Like, once again, if you get a chance to Mick Foley do his tour, his spoken word thing, please go. It's a fun night. But anyways, that was the whole thing. Like, Cactus Jack, he comes back in. Cactus Jack locks into sleeper hold. He back bumps onto Jack, and he's still moving. Cactus Jack's still moving. Takes a Vader bomb, still moving. And then they go back outside. Cactus ducks. Harley Race takes a clothesline from Vader.
Yeah, that looked painful.
Like, I know Vader didn't pull full force in it because it was Harley Race, and Harley was, still, to back bump onto concrete and taking a clothesline from Vader, props to friggin' Harley Race for doing this in 93.
Yeah, good for him for being willing to do that.
Yeah. By the way, Harley Race is actually, if you ever listen to stories, considered one of the toughest men in wrestling ever.
Didn't know that.
Oh. Maybe not Haku levels, but he's the kind of guy you would want to have in a bar fight, we'll put it that way.
Gotcha.
Because back in the day, wrestlers had to be, because kayfabe, when kayfabe was really, really real, where, heels and faces had separate locker rooms, you couldn't travel together, you couldn't be seen together anywhere in public, like, this was a real thing.
Right.
A lot of promoters would be like, people would, oh, look, there's a wrestler, I'm going to fight him. Wrestling's fake, I'm going to fight him. A lot of promoters back in the days when territories were things like, hey, if you get in a bar fight, cool. If you lose, you don't have a job anymore.
Really?
Yeah. Like, there would be times where wrestlers would lose a bar fight, they'd get fired from the territory. It's like, so a lot of these wrestlers back in the day were tough.
Right.
Let's put it this way, Harley Race never got fired, we'll put it that way.
Gotcha.
If that tells you how tough Harley Race was.
Yes, it does.
I wouldn't fight him. But anyways, so they're fighting on the outside. Vader took a splash into the guardrail, and I was like, oh, that looked like that hurt a little bit.
Yeah, get some safety railing to the ribs.
Yeah. And then so he goes to stand up, and I didn't even realize it. I was just watching. I didn't realize the ref was counting this whole time. Jack gets a front flip senton in at like an 8. He rolls in. Cactus Jack wins by countout.
Yeah, I honestly didn't mind it because the way Vader's been built that I've seen, there's not a whole lot of other ways that a man like Cactus Jack is going to win that match.
Yeah, and that's the point of it. So what do we get time-wise on that?
11 minutes, 43 seconds.
God, this was good.
I think this was my match of the night.
Yeah, easy. But everybody looked good in this match. Even it lost because Cactus Jack looked amazing because he was able to take all this damage, still move, and was able... He didn't win easy. He squeaked out a win.
Yes.
And the fact that Vader looked so strong, took so much damage... And then he didn't get pinned or anything. He lost by countout and then still popped up afterwards. Like, everybody looked strong here.
Yes.
Nobody looked weak. And so, Tony got the inevitable task of trying to talk to Vader after the match.
Yeah, Vader and Race both cut awesome promos.
It's just the fact that Harley Race has gotten a Vader promo, and he's scared. Harley Race scared the shit out of me. I'm like, what did I do? But basically, next week, Vader wins an unsanctioned match.
Yeah, that's gonna be E.
By the way, Vader and Cactus will wrestle next week.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to that now.
Wait till Halloween Havoc. Spoiler alert now, guys. Vader Cactus for the title. Texas Death Match.
And that is the end of WCW Saturday Night for April 17th.
That some people consider that match of the year, honestly, especially in WCW. Even more than the strap match he had with Sting. Yeah. So, we got that out of the way. Match of the night, Cactus Big Van Vader. Not even a question.
No, not a question.
You know what? Match of the episode, Cactus Big Van Vader. Not even close.
Yeah, agreed.
So, okay. So now we get that out of the way, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, as we do every week for non-pay-per-view weeks, we go over the top 5 movies of 93 and the top 5 songs. And we always start with the music. So, Bach, if you want to go ahead and go from 5 to 1, sir.
Alrighty, we are using the Billboard Hot 100 from April 17th. And it's important to note at this point, this is the Hot 100 singles. If a song is not released as a single, it's not eligible for this chart.
Like, I've always wanted, maybe you can, I don't know if you can touch base on this. When it comes to the Grammys, what's the difference between the Song of the Year and Album of the Year if they're both, like, single songs?
I don't know. I have never paid any attention to the Grammys.
I don't either. It's just something I always picked on. But, okay, so they have to be released individually as a single to count.
Yes. And I hate to be boring about this, but the top 5 is exactly the same as it was last week. No movement.
All right. Go ahead and do a 5 through 1 real quick if you want.
Number 5 is Don't Walk Away by Jade. Number 4 is I Have Nothing by Whitney Houston. Number 3 is Nothing But a G-Thang by Dr. Dre. Number 2 is Freak Me by Silk. And number 1 is Informer by Snow.
Okay. And, like, we're going to put movie trailers, which I forgot to do last week. But once again, serious amount. I worked a lot at work this week.
We are both very busy.
Yeah. And then music videos, if there's any new music videos or movies, we're not going to keep repeating the same ones. Because we're just going to clog your feed unnecessarily. So we're not going to see any music videos this week. We might throw in a couple in videos that we'll talk about later. So, top 5 movies. We actually have 2 new ones, but there's been a lot of change. And before this, I want to add something new, a little wrinkle, because you and I both love numbers and how stats work, somewhat.
Right.
I'm going to do the highest and lowest, like, percentage drops, like the highest percentage gain and the lowest percentage drop, in between weeks.
Okay.
Because you know how movies will lose screens or lose money, or they'll pop up because they went from limited release to wide release, right?
Right.
Okay, and these are actually, the weeks we have here is actually number 14 and number 15 are the numbers this week of the in the rankings. And actually, considering what I've seen, the fact that they're both in the 50 percentage is low. Like, you'll get into hundreds and thousands once you get, like, wide releases and stuff. Okay. The biggest drop for this week was a movie called Jack the Bear, which lost 52.1% of the week prior.
Like decrease in revenue or ticket sales or?
Well, it would be ticket sales or stuff like that. They made 52.1% less from this week to last week.
Okay.
But the biggest gain was at 15 was a movie called Like Water for Chocolate, which made 52.8% higher.
Okay. I haven't heard of either of those.
Yeah, this is a lot of times when you see movies drop, or like I said, the big percentage drops you'll see from when it goes from limited to wide release.
Gotcha.
Okay, here we go. Number 5, which was number 4 last week, with a gross of $4.5 million for a total gross of $35.2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
As I noted last week, the Tarzan Boy by Baltimore is on the Hot 100 off the strength of that movie.
Go Jungle Boy.
Go Jungle Boy.
Okay, number 4, which was number 2 last week, with a gross of $6.1 to $1 million, for a total gross of $13.5 million, The Adventures of Huck Finn from Disney. At number 3, which was number 1 last week, with $6.26 million for a total gross of $14.6, Cop and a Half. Number 2, with its debut on the charts, $8.1 million for obviously a total gross of $8.1 million. A personal favorite of mine, The Sandlot.
That's another one that I've heard a lot of good things about, but I've never watched it.
Watch it. It's a great movie. Okay, and here's a biggin. Week number 1, for a total gross of $32.2 million, which basically I think it outgrossed the other 4 movies combined. A movie called Indecent Proposal. It's Robert Redford, Demi Moore. The synopsis is, a billionaire offers $1 million to a young married couple for one night with the wife.
I see.
This is a mommy-daddy movie. You take the kids to go see Sandlot, mommy-daddy go see Indecent Proposal.
Okay.
But hey, the fact that it grossed $32 million.
Right.
So that's our top 5 domestics. These are all domestic grosses. And that is our episode for this week, ladies and gentlemen. We will be doing the week of, let me go to the next week of Raw. So next week we're going to start with the week of April 19th, 1993, Monday Night Raw. And WCW later on that week. So we'll give you everything, and I promise I'll watch the anime this week. And then Bach's going to watch Waiting. You can find the podcast on Twitter at capital D and capital A Podcast 1. We are on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Amazon, Good Pods, and iHeartRadio. So you're not going to get away from us. Where can we find you on the socials there, Bach?
I'm mostly on Twitch and Twitter at this point. I can be found at BigBoct, BIGBOCT.
Okay, and I am on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and Letterboxd for your movie fans. All at Xander Invictus. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week, and we will see you on the flippity flop.
See you next mission.